Hey, students of Seneca, welcome to our GCSE Geography Paper 1 run-through. Thanks very much for joining. 76 of you in the room, 78. So it's good. Tell your friends to join. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be going over some good tips for Paper 1. We've had loads of requests come in today for different things to cover, so thank you for those. We're going to go over tectonics. That's been heavily requested. We're going to go over some ecosystems. So keep those comments coming in. Thank you. Hopefully the sound quality is a bit better. If you've joined us before, we've been in some smaller rooms, so hopefully that'll be a bit better. Yeah, okay, ecosystems. I know I saw ecosystems was requested a lot. We're going to go over some of that. Let me know any of the other requests you have coming in, and we'll go over those. We'll try and do rivers and coasts, glacial landforms. I'll see you. We'll try and do as much as we can. We've only got half an hour, but I want to go over some general tips for the exam to begin with, just because that will be applicable to everything. This is mainly for AQA Paper 1, but a lot of the content will be coming up in others. So keep the questions coming in and let me know what's going to be useful. Okay, so just to start off, I just want to go over a few things that are really specific that are going to help you in the exam and your questioning. And this isn't relevant for like any exam board or pretty much any geography exam you're ever going to take. They use very specific questions. You need to make sure you're answering the question correctly based on what they want. So if a question asks you to compare and contrast something, don't list your answer. That means you have to use connected phrases. So something like whereas, okay? If a question's asking you to compare something, you have to compare similarities and differences. You have to use both. A lot of students also struggle with describe questions. Now, a describe question, you're just saying what you see. You should never have to use the word because in a describe question, okay? So that's something to look out for. When the question asks you to explain, that's when you've got to give a reasoning. So that's when you should be using because. Now, something that comes up a lot in Paper 1 is figures. You're going to be asked to describe figures. And I've got a little acronym I use to help me to describe figures when I get them in the exam, okay? And it's P, P-E-E. So first one is patterns. Describe any patterns that are in the figure. Examples is the first E. So give examples of what you're seeing. Like you're going to want to use the figures. You're going to want to manipulate the figures. So maybe like bar A is double the size of bar B. That's going to help you get some extra marks. And then you're going to, for the final E, you want to give any exceptions, okay? So that's patterns, examples, exceptions, 3 things you need to mention when you're describing any figure in the geography exam, okay? Don't simply lift the figures, try and manipulate them if you can. The questions will be designed so you can manipulate the figures. And make sure you use the key. So if it could be like kilometers squared, and if an OS map is provided, make sure you use 6-figure grid references. Geographers love that. Okay. The next little tip I'm going to give you is about how many marks are available for the question. Okay. If the question's around like 1, 2, or 3 marks, you get a mark per point. Okay. So you need to if it's a 3-mark question, make 3 points. Okay. Whereas if it's a 4+ mark question, it's level marked, okay? So there's a grid the examiners will look at and you'll have to place your answer somewhere in that grid. If you want to get on the top of that grid, which all of you should be aiming for, you're going to want to be specific, you want to give details, and you want to answer every single part of the question, okay? Break that question down, make sure that you answer every base, okay? Get straight to the answer. You don't get any credit for repeating the question, so get straight in there. It's a time-pressured exam. Link statements, do not have detached ideas. You want to be using connecting words like because, whereas, however. So that's what's going to help you get the higher marks. If the questions are asking for a case study, use case study evidence to support, okay? Especially in all 4+ mark questions, try and get a case study in there, okay? And if it's an 8-marker question, try and get in 3 to 4 pieces of case study evidence. So think of like however many marks the question is, half that, that's how many case studies you want to be getting in there. When you're using your case study, you want to peel your answer, okay? So make a point, give evidence, explain, and then link it back to the question. Linking it back to the question, super important. That's going to get you those extra marks, okay? So those were just a few little tips to help get you get your brains warmed up for what we're going to go through. We'll come back to some tips at the end to review them. So if any of them weren't clear, just let me know and we can go over them a little bit later. Okay, so we're largely going to be doing topics with a few case studies in there. So that's what we'll be doing. And thank you for saying people who've already helped, that we've already helped. That's what we're aiming for. What we're gonna do is we've got some cute little night before courses that we're gonna go over, and we're gonna go over some key things. We're gonna do tectonics. Came up a lot. People are messaging on Instagram really wanted some tectonic stuff, so we're gonna do that. Ecosystems has been coming up, so we'll do a hyper cram for ecosystems. So I hope you are excited as I am. Keep the requests coming in. I'll do my best to cover as much as I can. But we've only got half an hour. But fear not, we'll be back at 5:30 for a maths HyperStream because it's also GCSE maths tomorrow. So those of you doing geography and maths, my heart goes out to you. Double exams they're not the one. But at least it means it's two are over with and you're one step closer to that freedom. Okay, now I'm just gonna share my screen and then go through some geography hypercrams. Let me make sure my camera gets back up. Share. Okay, so like I said, we got a lot of requests for tectonics, so that's what we are going to be going over to begin with. Okay, so it's also a really common exam topic, so it's important to feel comfortable with and go over. Okay. Yes, geography is epic. I agree with that. Geography is great. It was one of my favorite GCSEs. Okay, so let's start with some hyper cramming for plate tectonics. Remember the 3 layers of the Earth: core, mantle, and crust. Each layer has a different consistency and makeup. Nice little GIF there showing the nice difference. So the layers you will need to remember: the core, that's the inner part. It's split into 2 layers made from iron and nickel. The core has a solid metallic inner layer and a liquid outer layer, and it's the hottest part of the Earth. And it can reach temperatures of 5,500 degrees Celsius. Bam. And the heat's caused by radioactive decay. Then we have the mantle that surrounds the core, and that's semi-solid rock, and it's molten and it can move. And that mantle and that movement is what causes the plate to move. And it can cause us a bunch of problems. And then the crust, that's the bit we can see, so it's like the outer shell of the Earth. It can be 5 to 100 kilometers thick, and it's floating on that mantle. It floats on that solid mantle and is broken into large pieces called tectonic plates. Okay, so where tectonic plates meet, that is called a plate boundary. That is where that action happens. You want to be using plate boundaries when you're talking about earthquakes, volcanoes, all that kind of stuff. And the tectonic plates move according to the movements in the mantle. Now we've got 2 types of plates: oceanic and continental plates. Okay, so the clue is kind of in the name. The continental plates are thicker, older, and lighter, and they do not sink. And the posh way of saying sink is subduct. If you use that word subduct in the exam, oh my gosh, that examiner is going to be so happy. So we want to be subducting. We don't want to be sinking. Subduct, good key term to remember. Then the oceanic plates, they're over the oceans. They're thinner, younger, and denser, so they can sink and subduct under another plate. When we get subduction, that's when the weird stuff happens, okay? So what was the hottest layer of the Earth? That's going to be the core. Remember that. The core is the hottest part. That's that little center. And why is it so warm? Nuclear decay. So volcanoes, that's where we're going to start. That is an opening in the Earth's crust. A volcano is formed when magma rises from inside the Earth and erupts onto the surface. Volcanoes can be formed at destructive and constructive plate margins. Oh, so fun. Volcanoes at plate boundaries. Let's go over destructive and constructive, the 2 key ones you need to know about. At destructive, the denser oceanic plate is forced under the continental plate. Do remember the posh word for sinking or going under? Anyone? Come on, humor me. It's going to be subduct. So that's the word we were looking for. That plate is going to subduct under the continental plate, and the friction and the pressure causes cracks to form in the continental plate. The magma rises up through these cracks, and destructive boundaries usually create highly explosive volcanoes that produce a lot of gas and lava. And lava is what we call magma above the surface. and magma is what's in the mantle layer of the Earth, okay? Next, at constructive plate boundaries, the plates move apart. The convection currents in the mantle diverge and cause gaps between the plates. Magma rises up to fill the gaps in the volcano, okay? So that's what is happening at destructive and constructive boundaries. The two important ones to remember. So let's do a little review. What is true about constructive plate boundaries? So what do we remember? So it's constructive, so the plates are going to be pulling apart, because as they're pulling apart, it lets that magma come up, and we're going to fill in the gaps in the plates, and then we make a nice new cute little bit of Earth. So that's how the Earth is constantly being made and regenerated. Okay, quick chat about earthquakes. That is a silent or violent, sudden and violent movement within the Earth's crust caused by a series of shocks. An earthquake happens when the Earth's tectonic plates move and cause the ground to shake. So if I started going like this, you might think I was like stuck in an earthquake. In fact, I'm just very unbalanced and on like one of those weird like office chairs with wheels. So might look like I'm in an earthquake right now, but I'm not. I'm just very uncoordinated and lanky. Earthquakes can happen at destructive, constructive, and conservative plate boundaries. As plate moves past each other, pressure builds up from the friction between them, and when the pressure is sufficient, the plates give way. This causes the plates to jerk past each other and the ground to shake. So it's like the two plates. They're like this, they're like, ooh, there's so much pressure, and then boom, they slide past each other, and that causes all of the shaking, okay? Key thing with physical geography is to use that terminology, though. That's what's going to get you those marks. You need to use like plate margins, where you've got to use words like pressure builds up because of friction, okay? Those are the kind of things the examiner is going to be looking for. Those are what's going to get you those marks. So again, there's those three types of plate margins: conservative, destructive, and constructive. So at conservative, that's when they're moving past each other. Destructive, that's with the subduction, and constructive, when they're sliding apart, okay? And that's the three where we get earthquakes, okay? So I feel like we've been talking about plate margins and tectonics a lot, but it was a heavily requested topic, so thanks for getting all of those requests in. Do we have any questions about tectonics at the moment? Anybody? Just let me know of any. Can conservative plates go the opposite or the same? Oh, my screen's gone. Sorry. So if we want to know conservative plates, so conservative plates can be moving the same way or opposite ways. But either way, it's going to be, there's still going to be friction building up, because they're very, if you think about rocks are like super jagged. They're not like nice, smooth surfaces. So there's going to be a pressure build up. But very good question. Thanks for bringing that one in. Now, there were loads of requests for ecosystems. So ecosystems hyper flashcards is what we're going to go over next, okay? Hopefully this will be a nice quick fire review of the key different ecosystems you need to know. And just while we're here, let's give it a go. So what are ecosystems made up out of? So ecosystems are all the living and non-living parts in a specific area. If you want the posh word, that's biotic and abiotic. Biotic means living and abiotic means not living. So those are the two things that make up ecosystems. And as Mufasa said, we are all connected in a great circle of life. Love a Lion King reference. So good. Okay, so next up, we are going to be talking about the different roles that organisms and ecosystems can be classified into. So producers, consumers, decomposers. That's what we need to be remembering. So we've got, that's weird. My computer just started playing my own voice. A bit too much for me to deal with. Producers, they are cute little plants. They're going to steal that sunlight energy, use the chlorophyll in their leaves to make their own food. Consumers, that's what we are. We can't make our own food. They're going to eat by consuming other organisms. And then decomposers, that is what completes our nice little circle of life. They recycle organic matter within the ecosystem. And this is crucial for ecosystems to function because it allows nutrient cycling. I think there should be a G on that cycling, but I kind of like it without the G. It makes it sound more fun, cycling. And even that's one of my favorite photosynthesis GIFs. At Seneca, we're very up to date on our scientific related gifts. It's a delight. Okay, so what happens during nutrient cycling? Do you remember which part of the ecosystem is important for nutrient cycling? It is the decomposers. And the decomposition reduces nutrients back into the soil, and then the plants take up the nutrients. These plants can then be eaten by consumers. And when the plants or consumers die, the nutrients are returned to the soil. So it's like the antelope becoming the grass in a certain Disney film that I'm not going to mention again because I talk too much about it. Okay, food chains and food webs, what are they? Food chains and food webs show feeding relationships within communities of organisms. Food chains show what eats what within a biological community. Oh, that was a bit of a tongue twister. Food webs. Food webs show how several food chains overlap with each other. Makes sense, web connected. So food web is just like a massive food chain with like all the different like interactions, stuff like that. Okay, so what are ecosystems cascades? A very common definition question. They are different parts of an ecosystem that link together. So if one ecosystem changes, it's likely to have impact on other parts, like a little domino effect. Okay, so which of these statements about food chains and food webs are not true? Do we know? Okay, food webs show how several food chains overlap with each other. That sounds pretty true to me because that's all about that interlinking. So food chains and webs show feeding relationships with abiotic communities. Well, abiotic means not living. So food chains are all about biotic interactions within an ecosystem. Food chains show what eats what within a biological community. That sounds true, so I'm not going to take that. Food chains show how several food webs overlap. That's trying to you out. That's a me question because it's food webs that show how food chains interact with each other. And see, we get a nice little reward gift for being such good students and answering that correctly. Okay, so that takes us to the end of ecosystems. I'm going to stop screen sharing for now and just see if there are any questions that people have about what's been going on. Because we've done ecosystems and we've done tectonics, which were two of the big topics requested. Is there anything else that people want to go over? We've got another 15 minutes. So we've got coastal management. Anything else that people want to go over? River, oh my God, so many. An example of a decomposer, that's something like a fungus. So like mushrooms that you see in the forest, they're decomposers. They're known as, like the posh name is saprophyte. So if you're going for like a 7, 8, or 9, it's a good word to throw in there. Oh my God, okay, I think glaciers is very, I'm loving how many times glaciers is being thrown in there. So I feel like I can't get away with not doing glaciers. But back to the example of decomposers. Decomposers are stuff like fungi, and they can also be bacteria, so ones we can't see. Okay, so that is a good example of a decomposer. Okay, so thank you for everyone's requests that are coming. I'll try and do as many as I can, but I am but one little geographer. I think what we'll do is glaciers was also requested before the session, so that's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to try and be as quick as I can so that we can then have time to do another one. I can see rivers coming up a lot, so I'll try and get that. And glaciers is a fun one because it also makes me think of like, there used to be this really good candy that was called like glacier candy. I don't know if they still do it, I'm showing my age. And it was like, they were like fruit glaciers. They were really good. So I'm going to do that because it's like I'm a bit hungry maybe. But we'll go over glacial landforms as something that was requested. So, oh my God, look how big this flashcard is. This is intense. Okay, so what are the different landforms caused by glacial erosion? Okay, so there's quite a lot that you need to remember, but we're gonna go through them now, break it down, and it's gonna be so fun. So I can never say this word, but I like the E with the little thing on, confuses me. Aretus, aretes, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you know how to spell it, say it however you want. They are steep ridges that form when two glaciers flowing in parallel valleys erode the sides of their valley. Now we've also got pyramidal peaks. And peaks are pointed with 1, 2, 3 sides, because 3 is great. These are formed when 3+ glaciers erode different sides of a mountain. We also have hanging valleys, and they're formed by smaller glaciers that join up with the main glacier. So they're hanging out. That's how I remember it. Like, smaller glaciers join up to form hanging valleys. Because the smaller glacier erodes less powerfully, the valley is much shallower. We've also got ribbon lakes. Now, those are those long, thin lakes that forms in the hollows in glacial troughs and when a glacier retreats. So when it goes back, that's when we get that ribbon lake. Carriers, steep, armchair-shaped hollows with a lip at the bottom end. These are formed by a rotational slip of small glaciers, okay? We also have tarns. Tarns are small circular lakes left behind in corries when the glaciers melt. Glacial troughs. Glacial troughs are valleys with steep sides and flat floors. They gradually become wider and deeper. And then we have truncated spurs, which is probably my favorite glacial landform, just because it has a cool name. And those are sheer faces on the side of glacial troughs. These are formed when spurs are cut off as the glacier progresses. Okay, so lots to take in there. Try to remember like a good 3 or 4 of them. Maybe make a cute little note of them, the ones you can't remember. Okay, so what are the long, thin lakes that form in hollows when the glacier retreats? Do you remember? It's a ribbon lake. So just think of a ribbon and like they're long, they're thin, they're cute, boom. Oh, we so smart, we're doing so good. Okay, so what is moraine? Moraine, I never want more rain. I always want sunlight, but moraines, they are landforms that are left behind after a glacier melts. They are made up of till, and their position determines which of the 4 types of particular landform it is. Look how cute that's such a good picture. Don't you just love that? Lateral moraine, medium moraine, ground moraine, terminal moraine. Which moraine are you? Let us know. I think I'd be a terminal moraine. That looks like the most fun. What are the 4 types of moraine? Well, luckily this diagram is going to tell us everything we need to know. Lateral, medial, ground, and terminal. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great little Paul McCartney gift there. And to remember the 4 types of moraine. Okay, so we're gonna have to cut off glaciers there. The key thing to remember are the different types of landforms. Truncated spurs being the best one. I'm biased for no particular reason. I just think it's a cool name. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over a little stress buster, because it is important to keep yourself physically and mentally happy and healthy during the exam season, and keep balance, even though it can seem hard when you have loads of exams. I know it's a stressful time. So keep healthy, all being really proactive, being in your revision and being proactive in your work and revision. So well done. It's really, really great to see. Hopefully it's been useful. Let me know what else would have been useful or would still be useful. We've still got another 5 minutes. As this gift says, I'm here to help you. So I want these to be as useful as possible for you all. So let me know what's good. And get ready, your exams are coming. That's exactly what you're doing by joining and coming to this live stream. So thank you very much. But again, don't need to panic. You've been working really hard. Even if it's been for a few days, you've probably been putting some work in. So be confident in the work that you have done. And if you get stressed, try and doing some exercise to chill out. That can be really good. Maybe go for like a 15-minute walk around the block or whatever it is, or maybe walk to your friend's house to go see your friends and hang out. If I get stressed, I always do some breathing exercises. That really helps me. I just count to 4 and breathe in, hold it for 4 seconds, and then breathe out for 4 seconds. That really helps me. I definitely used to do that a lot in the exam hall myself when I was stressed out. So breathing in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and breathe out for 4 seconds. Boom, look at that. Oh, Cristiano on a TRX machine. I hate TRX exercise machines. They're awful. Anyway, reach out to friends, support each other. You've probably got a great support network at school or at home. So reach out to friends. Don't be afraid to say that you're stressed. There's no shame in being stressed or feeling anxious. Talking about it can really help. And remember, keep exams in proportion. They aren't the be-all and end-all to all of your life. That is very good advice from the Seneca Stress Buster. So, okay, that was and reward yourself when you're done. You've achieved so much by getting through your GCSEs. Just think of that just think of that feeling when you walk out of your last GCSE. It's going to be great. You're going to feel so proud and happy that it's over. Okay. Christiana's proud of you. I'm proud of you. You've got a lot of people who are proud of you. So well done for all of your hard work and keeping it up. So get ready to rock those exams, okay? Scared, nervous, excited. It's a good combination of emotions. Okay, so that brings us to the end of going through a few topics. Thanks for all of those requests that came in. I'm just going to recap those learning points from the start of the session, just so we can round off with some exam tips to help you in that exam, okay? Oh, so many people want rivers and coasts. So many, okay. Oh, so many people, rivers and coasts. Okay, coasts and beaches, no. Okay, okay, let's see. I'm gonna try and cram in some rivers because it's like, I feel bad because you guys really want it and you've pitched up here to go through this. So we want to go over some rivers. Let's see what we got. We'll go over some river landscapes. I'll tell you what, we'll do some river landscape 1 to 2 mark questions, just as a quick little 5-minute run through. While I get that set up, just remember the little tips from the start of the lesson. Whenever you are answering a question, make sure you think of that question word. Remember, a describe question, never use because. You're just describing what you see. An explain question, that's when you've got to use because. When you have an expression saying compare, you've got to give similarities and differences, and you want to be using words like whereas or however, that kind of thing as little triggers to remember what you need to do. Look at the marks of the question to gauge how you need to answer it. If it's a 3-mark question or less, you just need to give 3 points or 2 points or 1 point to get the marks. If it's 4 marks or more, those are level marks. So you need to be specific. You need to give answers, and you have to give specific answers, give examples, and answer all parts of the question. So if it's a long question, break it down to make sure you're covering every little aspect. Okay, so very quickly, we've got to go over river landscapes 1 to 2 markers, okay? And so what is give the definition of thalweg. So a thalweg is the long profile of a stream of a river. It is the line of the deepest channel along the length of a stream or river. So this would be an example of something like a 1-mark question where you just got to give 1 point. And a thalweg, that's the long profile of a stream or river. And it's the line of the deepest channel along the length of a stream or river. Okay, so identify the labeled features X and Y of the waterfall below. Okay, so another important landform. X is what's the undercutting. So it comes under there, easy to remember because it's on the underside of the cliff. And then Y is the plunge pool. Plunge pool. Also something that's at like the bottom of a water slide, the plunge pool. Okay, so 2 important things to remember. We're going quite quick because I want to get through these. So I hope it's all going okay. Okay, so which of the following are human factors that increase the risk of flooding? Who can tell me? So I know straight off the back, deforestation is going to be one, because remember trees, they have trees, they're really important because they absorb water from the soil. And if not, when that water, when the water falls down and it infiltrates into the soil, the trees can help like increase stability, all that kind of stuff. So it's important. I think, to be fair, I think a good argument can be made for all of these to increase the risk of flooding. But I think those are all the 1 to 2 markers we had for this. Let's go over some flashcards because I want to get as much as we can. We're running over a little bit, but let's just do it. Why not? What does the long profile of a river show? The long profile shows the gradient and how it changes over the course. So that's what that is. What is the course of a river? The course of the river is the path it takes. Rapid fire definitions to end the session. This is going to be, let's get pumped. What are the 3 parts of a river's course? 1, 2, 3. We have upper, middle, and lower course. Amazing. What happens to the gradient of a river as it travels from the source to its mouth? The gradient decreases. The slope becomes more gentle as the river moves from its upper course towards its lower course. What does the cross profile of a river show? Think of it like, boom, taking a little section of the river, and it shows what, oh my gosh, the cross profile shows what the cross section looks like. Great, excellent. So, okay, upper course of the river, what are the characteristics? Erosion dominates over deposition. Remember that because it's the upper part, it's where there's lots of little streams coming together. The valley is steep-sided in V shape, and the channel is narrow and shallow. Okay, that's the upper course of the river. Middle course of the river, neither erosion nor deposition are particularly dominant. The valley is gently sloping, and the channel is wider and deeper than the upper course, but not as wide or deep as the lower course. Okay, and then makes sense. What is the lower course of a river? Deposition dominates over erosion. The valley is wide and flat, and the channel is wide and deep. Okay, that was definitely a hypercram on rivers. My brain is definitely feeling a bit fried, but I hope it was a useful run through. And I'm sorry I couldn't spend longer on rivers, but we had lots of requests today for different things to cover. So had to get a little bit of everything in. So parting remarks, go into the exam feeling confident, chilled, relaxed. Remember be confident in all the hard work you've done it up to this point. And thank you so much for joining on this HyperStream. Hope it was good and useful. Let me know what's going to be useful for you. I'm glad some of you are feeling more confident. It's really, really great. Maths is coming up at 5:30. I'm actually going to be back. It's going to be me and Richard doing the maths HyperStream. We're going to try and bounce off each other. You're so welcome for all the help. It's going to be for paper 1 non-calculator. So make sure you head on over to that at 5:30. And then at 6 p.m., Seneca is doing a free trial of the smart learning. So much throwing your way. So hopefully you'll get all the prep you need for your exams. Thank you very much for joining. And I will catch you on, well, for those of you sticking around, I'll see you at 5:30. And thanks so much for being here. Last piece of advice, remember for those diagram questions, PEE, what is the pattern of the graph? Give an example of a figure, and are there any exceptions to the figure? Three things to remember, boom, boom, boom. Thanks very much for joining, and come join us for the math one. And we're going to be doing these all week, so hit subscribe to keep up to date on all of the things that we're going to be doing. Let us know if there are any exams we're missing or anything else you want to see. And good luck, and I'll catch you in 50 minutes. Bye-bye.